When the Israelites walked out of Egypt, they left behind the only economic system they had ever known. Weeks after their departure, their journey took them away from the coastal oases and directly into the wilderness of Sin, a barren, geographical void stretching between Elam and Sinai. Inside this desolate landscape, the reality of their isolation set in. The food supplies they carried out of Egypt dwindled, and the immediate physical crisis of hunger began to eclipse the euphoria of their recent liberation. Faced with starvation, the newly freed nation quickly lost faith in the leaders who brought them there. Panic rapidly turned into a full-scale revolt. The historical record states that the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Their complaints were highly specific. They romanticized their former captivity, telling Moses and Aaron, "Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full." They accused their leaders of bringing them into the desert, simply to kill this whole assembly with hunger. God utilized the reality of hunger to initiate a systematic dismantling of the Israelites' psychological reliance on the Egyptian economy. The divine response to their panic was immediate and highly visible. Moses commanded the people to gather, and as they looked toward the desert, behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. God promised to answer their explicit cravings for meat and bread. That evening, the quails came up and covered the camp, providing an immense, immediate source of protein right at their tents. The next morning, as the dew evaporated, a new substance remained on the desert floor. The text describes it as a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. The Israelites called it manna, a substance resembling white coriander seed that tasted like wafers made with honey. Supplying the meat and the bread solved the acute nutritional crisis, but God utilized this daily need for sustenance to construct a rigorous behavioral curriculum designed to test their obedience. This diagram illustrates the first unyielding rule of the manna test. The Israelites were commanded to gather exactly 1 omer per person, roughly a tenth of an ephah, or a couple of liters. Every person collected precisely what they needed for a single day, establishing a baseline of daily trust. To prevent any regression into self-reliance, the law was absolute. Let no man leave of it till the morning. They were strictly forbidden to store it overnight to protect themselves against tomorrow's uncertainty. When certain individuals ignored Moses and attempted to hoard the manna anyway, the physical consequences were immediate and repulsive. The hoarded surplus bred worms and stank, earning Moses' anger and destroying their unauthorized stockpile. Even the ungathered manna left out in the desert fields offered no security. Once the morning passed and the sun waxed hot, the remaining substance simply melted away into the sand. This aggressive cycle of controlled gathering and guaranteed spoilage systematically dismantled the hoarding mindset learned in Egypt. It forced the entire population into a state of active, daily dependence on God's provision. This 7-day timeline graphic tracks the gathering cycle. For the first 5 days, rules remained fixed, but on the 6th day, the mechanics entirely inverted to prepare the nation for the Sabbath. Without warning, the yield doubled. The Israelites gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for 1 man. They baked and boiled what they needed, saving the remainder. Here, the secondary miracle of preservation occurred. The substance remained perfectly stable on the Sabbath morning. The text confirms, "It did not stink, neither was there any worm therein." This surplus was provided for a strictly enforced day of holy rest. Moses informed the camp that on the Sabbath, "In it there shall be none." The field would yield 0 manna. Despite the warning, some people still went out on the 7th day to work and gather, only to find the desert completely empty. The Lord immediately rebuked them through Moses, asking, "How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws?" The Sabbath test forced a critical realization upon the newly formed nation. Relentless, unbroken labor would not guarantee their survival. Their survival depended entirely on their faith and obedience to the law. To ensure this lesson outlasted the generation that lived it, Moses commanded Aaron to fill a single pot with an omer of manna. This pot was placed before the Lord to be kept as a physical, permanent testament for all future generations. This behavioral conditioning continued for an entire generation, with the scriptural record noting that the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years. Every single morning for 4 decades, the nation engaged in this exact rhythm of gathering, resting, and trusting. The supernatural provision only ceased when they finally arrived at the borders of the inhabited land of Canaan. The daily requirement of gathering and the weekly requirement of rest eventually forged a population capable of sustained collective discipline. When the manna finally ceased at the borders of Canaan, the nation had moved past the reactionary complaints of the wilderness of sin, having practiced the mechanics of obedience for 14,000 consecutive days.